Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to episode number 100 of Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. I'm your host, Scott Thomas Outler, and it is Monday, March the 9th, 2020. Global pandemics, a plague in the consciousness of man, locust swarms, financial meltdowns, napalm-level political warfare, mass quarantines, oil price epidemics, organically occurring gaslight syndromes, insufficient healthcare preparedness, mass media propaganda, baseline hysteria, tornadoes, infernos, conspiratorial endorsements of chaos, and the ever-present insurance scapegoat known as natural causes. So what's new? What a weird world. Not exactly the way I'd planned to kick off this celebration of episode number 100 here tonight, but life unfolds as it will, as it must, as it does, and so we do our best to flow in flux. But we're going to be here live for the next 2 hours this evening, talking about art, poetry, and mostly peaceful endeavors. So welcome to the show, and thank you for tuning in. I'll use this as an opportunity to take a deep breath. Please feel free to do the same. A short reprieve from reality. I am looking forward to tonight's episode. Coming up in the next segment, I'll be joined by Beth Gordon, who will be coming on to discuss her new book, Particularly Dangerous Situation, and to speak about the new journal she's editing for Animal Heart Press called Feral. So please stay tuned for her interview coming up shortly. And phone lines will be open later tonight if there's anyone who would like to call in and say hello, ask Beth any questions, or read a few poems of your own. Definitely hope to hear from you. The number is 646-668-8757, and I'll be giving that out later in the show again when the lines open up. Well, Songs of Selah launched back in September of 2018, and that was what is known as diving into the water before learning how to swim. I didn't quite know what I was doing at the time, but hopefully a year and a half later I've at least learned how to tread water, so perhaps the show is a proper metaphor for my life in general. Hallelujah. I want to thank every guest who has appeared on the program through the first 100 episodes, and thank everyone who has called in to read their poems during that time. Thank you also to everyone who has listened to the show, spread the word about it, and shared their thoughts. Feedback is always welcome, whether things are running smoothly or there are areas you think could use improvement. I've had the opportunity to interview some of my best friends in the world and to speak with some of the finest contemporary writers and artists around, so it's been a hell of a positive experience so far, and things are just getting started. They say that whatever makes you most uncomfortable in life is likely what you should head straight toward, whoever they are. Someone said it anyway, and the point is that I continue to do so here. My natural inclination is to live like a veritable hermit tucked away in silence, to pour the writing out and let it speak for me. But I've tried to kick that introverted habit over the past several years by attending and performing at literary events. That effort helped to begin pulling me out of the shell. This show has served a similar purpose. Who knows where it goes next? Time will tell, but I'm truly thankful for the process. And I did want to mention that submissions for the 2020 Setu Mag Western Voices Poetry Edition are currently open. I'm guest editing again this year, so thank you to Sunil Sharma and Anurag Sharma for the opportunity. Those guidelines for submissions can be found in a recent post up at 17numa.com. It's going to be a pleasure reading through everyone's work, so please do send it our way soon, and feel free to spread the word to anyone you know who might be interested in doing the same. That will just about wrap things up here at the top. Let's go to a music break now and then come back on the other side with tonight's guest, Beth Gordon. Stay tuned.
Back to Songs of Selah. I do encourage listeners to please take a moment and subscribe to the 17 Numa Radio channel here. It's free and easy. All you have to do is click the follow button found on the page where this episode is streaming, and that will get you signed up. And a reminder to everyone that all past episodes of Songs of Selah can be accessed or downloaded for later listening from the archive here on the channel or from the Songs of Selah page at 17numa.com. And if there's anyone interested in appearing as a guest on a future episode, please shoot me an email at 17numa@gmail.com or connect and reach out on any of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and I'd be happy to get you set up for an episode coming up soon. Tonight's guest, Beth Gordon, is a poet, mother, and grandmother currently living in Asheville, North Carolina. Her poems have been nominated for Best of the Net, the Pushcart Prize, and the Orison Anthology. She is the author of 2 chapbooks, Morning Walk with Dead Possum, Breakfast and Parallel Universe from Animal Heart Press, and her new collection, Particularly Dangerous Situation from Claire Songbird Publishing. She is managing editor of Feral, assistant editor of Animal Heart Press, and the poetry editor of Gone Lawn. So thanks so much for joining the program again, Beth. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Scott. How are you?
Getting by all right, thank you. Great to have you back on the program here, and looking forward to diving into this.
It's great to be here.
Hearing about this new collection that you've released and diving into some of the themes that you're tackling in it. You want to give us a little lowdown on what the collection is about and maybe some of the process that went into creating it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was interesting as I heard you opening the show, and I guess that was a poem you were reading about, all the chaos in the world right now.
Right.
I thought how apropos with this collection that I have a particularly dangerous situation. So, as you may or may not recall, from when I was on the show before and talking about my first book, Morning Walk, those were poems and really inspired by and speaking to my grief journey after my granddaughter Daisy died suddenly at the age of 7 months. And as I started writing again after her death, of course I was first very much just writing about my grief and writing about that loss, but I became aware of the fact that I was very tuned into to other people's losses and to kind of tragedy in the world in general, maybe sort of hypersensitive to those things, thinking about when somebody you love is there 1 minute and gone the next, you become aware of all the terrible things that can happen to people, to put it, I guess, bluntly. And so if you read this collection, and I read a review of it today, and somebody called it a dark collection, and I think that's fair because there is a lot of floods and disease and serial killers and murder and, overdoses and kind of perpetuate this book. But I hope also, especially, as you read through it and kind of get to the conclusion of the book, I hope that there is some hope in it as well. I mean, I hope it's not just dark, and that there's some hopeful messages in it as well. But the title itself came from watching the Weather Channel talk about a tornado that was going to come through the area where I was living at the time, and it was such a huge storm, and the tornado, as they talked about it on what I call weathertainment, they called it a particularly dangerous situation. And I thought, well, what a great way to describe life. So
right.
That's the book.
Well, that intersection between hope and diving into the darker aspects or the shadow aspects of life and of consciousness, there's a fine line there sometimes of going through that grieving process, and sometimes we have to react to the things that aren't exactly pleasant, but dealing with reality as it is can bring us
out
the other
absolutely
side. Is that something you found going into those regions?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say that's true of this book and of Morning Walk, that writing these poems and continuing to write, continues to be a healing process, not just from that loss, but I think a way of dealing with life in general. And not to say I have a terrible life, because I don't. I actually consider myself to be, despite some tragedies in my life, I still consider myself to be a very fortunate person. But I just think writing, at least for me, is a way to find that hope, is a way to continue to discover beauty in the world. I just think, I say poetry saved my life, and I mean it. There's no irony in that statement at all. I absolutely mean it. And coming out the other side, I would call myself a fatalist, but also an optimist. And I know that sounds weird, but I say fatalist in the sense that I know I think, again, going through that kind of loss, I clearly understand. I am very, very aware of the fact that the people I love could be gone at any time. And I'm also very aware of the fact that I'm going to die someday. I have a T-shirt that says, "Someday we'll all be dead." And I mean that in the most absolutely optimistic way, because once you accept that and don't fear it anymore and just know that that's part of being human, it's very freeing. At least it has been for me. It means that I'm not afraid to get on a plane and fly to San Antonio for AWP, which I just came back from, because the option was to just not go, and to me that wasn't an option. I want to live my life.
Yeah, I like that carpe diem, seize the moment sort of attitude. I think I describe life sometimes as eternal optimism with a subtle note of sorrow, and we all
right
that existential angst that's always there on the edge, peering in and trying to take us into its darkness, but we have to continue to press forward and be present through all of this chaos and madness that we're going through in the world and in our personal lives. And I wanted to get back to something you had touched on there when you said poetry had saved your life, because I wanted you to delve more into that. Is it just the writing aspect, or is it the other people that you've met through the communities that you've been in as well?
All of it.
Along with it.
Yeah, all of it. I hadn't written, for a long time. I have an MFA I got in 1990. I wrote, from the time I could pick up a pencil. But it had been about 10 years, before Daisy died. It had been about 10 years since I'd really written. Every now and then I would pick up a pen and try something, but, I was raising kids. I was a single mom. I had 3 teenagers at home at one point. It was just life. And then after Daisy, I remember thinking I had absolutely no idea what I was supposed to do. I didn't know how to comfort my daughter. I didn't know how to comfort my other children. I didn't know how to comfort myself. I didn't know how to live in a world where she was gone. And I went to a funeral party, I guess is the best way to say it, one of those gatherings after a funeral, because I went to a lot of funerals that year, and I met, I may have told this story before on the last time I was on the show, but I met my friend JD at that gathering almost exactly 6 years ago, and I heard him tell somebody he was a writer, and I said, I'm a writer too, and we started writing together. I started writing again, and here I am 6 years later with 2 books and, hundreds of friends, whether I know them in person or just through social media, but, in the writing community and this very supportive writing community that's out there. And so it's just been this journey, and I look back and I think if that hadn't happened at that moment, if I hadn't met that person at that moment and started writing again, I don't know how I would have found my way after that loss.
It's so amazing how life brings those little glimpses of experience into our path. And I'm glad that you seized it, met John, and were able to strike up that writing and artistic relationship. Is that something that y'all still do on a regular basis, the kitchen table writing sessions?
The magic kitchen table, yeah. Well, sadly, since I moved, I was up until September of last year, I was living in the St. Louis area, and that's where JD lives, and in a little town across the river in Illinois, and that's where the Magic Kitchen Table was. But I moved in September to Asheville, North Carolina, to be near my parents, and two of my my daughter and grandchildren live in Florida, and my other daughter lives in Richmond, Virginia. So I'm just closer to family. So JD and I do Zoom. I taught him how to get onto Zoom, and we do it by video. And we talk every day. We communicate every day. We send each other poems, and he was here in January. I just spent 2 weeks with JD, both in St. Louis and in San Antonio. So we find a way, but we don't get as many opportunities to be at the Magic Kitchen Table. And it truly was a place of magic, I have to say.
It's great that you're still both making the effort to stay in contact and keep that going, though. So critical to have those sorts of relationships in life, especially when they keep us inspired and pushing ourselves forward. So shout out to John, and glad that you'll have that connection. You talked about moving recently to Asheville. How has that transition been for you so far?
Yeah, it's been good. So my parents have lived here since 2005, so for 15 years. When they retired, they moved here, and they're both originally from Greensboro, North Carolina. So I grew up most of my life in Virginia and North Carolina. My early childhood, my dad was in the Air Force, and I lived all over the country. But by the time I was a teenager, we were living in Virginia. So this part of the world is very familiar to me. I have a lot of family in North Carolina and Virginia. And I've been coming to visit my parents in Asheville for the last 15 years and love the city. It's great. It's just, especially for anybody with any kind of creative endeavor, this is a city full of artists and writers and musicians. It's kind of a funky little place. It's not huge. I think now they're about to hit 100,000 people. But it's this little dot in the middle of North Carolina that has a lot of cool stuff going on. So that's good. My dad has Alzheimer's, and my mom has been his primary caretaker. So now I'm 2 miles away from them, and I can help more. And my son moved with me too, and he's very close to my parents, and he's helping as well. So it's good getting settled in, getting connected to people here in Asheville, which is great.
And I'm sure that your mom is very thankful to have you there, for the support, obviously, but
yeah,
to have you there in general.
Yeah. Yeah, she's awesome. I have really awesome parents.
It's wonderful that things are working out there for you so far, and hopefully that artist community there will continue to take you in and find some great events there around the area. And speaking of events, you had talked about the recent trip there to AWP down in Texas. What was the energy and mood like at the conference this year?
It was great. I went last year to Portland, Oregon, and that was my first AWP. And that was a great experience, and it was also my first time in Portland, Oregon, which is another fun city. But it was huge last year in terms of the number of attendees. And almost overwhelming. I heard you say in your introduction that your natural inclination is to be an introvert, and I'm actually an extrovert, and I like being around people, and I like talking to people, and I had to go find a corner in Portland to just be. That's how many people were there. So going to San Antonio, because a lot of the publishers, decided not to come. A lot of the attendees decided not to come. I think I read somewhere that the final count of attendees was somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000. And so for those of us who were there, there was this energy of, all right, well, we're here. Let's make this good. We showed up. We understand and respect people's decisions who didn't show up. I would never, ever question somebody's decision not to be there. It's a personal choice. People have to do what's right for them, but for those of us who showed up, it was just great, really able to have more one-on-one conversations with the publishers, people sitting at those tables and booths, being able to kind of look around a room and spot somebody rather than just can't make out anybody because there's so many people in that room. So that part was great. I went to off-site readings Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night, and in fact had been invited to participate to the readings Thursday night and Friday night. And the off-site readings are great. I discovered that when I was in Portland. There's so much great energy at those. Meeting who are reading, just hearing people's words and what everybody's doing. Lots of great energy around that. So I had a blast this year, not that I would, wish for those circumstances to happen again, but it was really nice as an attendee that it wasn't as crowded.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a little bit more of an intimate connection possible there.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the one over at Portland last year, and I think overwhelming is the exact right word to use for that was the only one I've ever been to before, and it was definitely a crowded spot. But, yeah, those off-site readings, very cool as well. So glad you got to participate in several of those. Who were you reading with?
So Wednesday night I went to the Passages North reading, and I was not one of the featured readers, but I do have a poem in the current issue, and they had an open mic, so I got to read there. So that was Wednesday. Thursday night I was reading with the Hunger Journal, and then Friday night with Juke Joint magazine.
Very cool. That's a lot loaded into a short period of time there. So glad you got to participate in all those. And speaking of journals, maybe we should transition in and talk a little bit about the new journal that you're associated with. You called in, got to speak for it a few minutes last week on the show, and Amanda and Ellie were on here, but wanted to get into it a little more deeper here tonight, the Feral Journal that you're running through Animal Heart Press. Can you talk a little bit about the genesis of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I, the Animal Heart Press published my first book, and that's how I first, I knew Ellie before that because we had been in some other journals, and she and I met last January, so January of 19, we met at a reading in Brooklyn and just felt a real connection to her. And it was funny because when they published my book and, we had all the pre-orders, and when it was time to start mailing those, Amanda and Ellie asked me if they could ship them to me and send me postage and I would ship them out. And I'm like, sure, I'll do that. And they're like, oh, that would be great, because, of course, Amanda can't do it. She's in Australia, and Ellie has 2 little kids. And I got the books, and I put them in envelopes, and I took them to the post office the next day, and they were both so, amazed that I had gotten it done in 24 hours. I'm like, well, I told you I'd do it, and I did it.
An artist or writer who's on top of their stuff?
Right.
It's
and
so rare.
That summer, I think, they asked me, hey, do you want to join the press? Would you do that for us? Can you be the person shipping our books out? I was like, sure, I'd love to do that. And so that's what I was doing for them, and I'm still doing. I don't ship the international orders, but all the orders in the U.S., I ship them out. And I know it sounds silly because they think it's crazy that I like doing it, but I'm like, oh, my God, I get to put a book in an envelope and ship it to somebody, and at the other end of that, somebody's going to open that envelope and have poetry in their hand. I think that's fantastic. I love that idea of being involved in that. And then I just started getting more and more involved with them, helping, proof different books that they were getting ready to publish. And I think it was after I moved. It was probably October or November. They approached me and said, we want to bring more poetry into the world. We can only, we're still a tiny press. We can only publish so many books in a given year. And given the size of our press, it's amazing how much we actually do get out there into the world. And they said, we're thinking of starting an online journal. Would you like to be managing editor? And I was like, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about kind of their vision of it and what some of my ideas were. We're going to publish it online quarterly. We go to Farrell and look at our submission guidelines. They're pretty vague. When we put our first guidelines out there, I thought, well, I can't tell people, go read our past issues, or this is the kind of work we're looking for. I thought, I just really want to see what people send us. But I do think our vision, when I think of Amanda and Ellie and I think our vision for Animal Heart Press and for Farrell is we want to publish poetry that is emotionally brave, that is thematically compelling, and where the strong voice and strong poetic craft. And when I say craft, I don't mean that somebody has to be writing sonnets. I mean they have to, whatever the way they want to present their poetry to the world. I like work that feels like the person has practiced their craft, has refined their craft. And I want to be, I know we want to be surprised. We want to be inspired. I want to read them and go, oh my God, I wish I had written that. We have 2 readers for Farrell, Sam and Addie, who are in Nigeria. And so we are a very international press. We have Amanda in Australia. We have our readers in Nigeria. Ellie's in Vermont, and I'm in North Carolina, so we're just scattered all over. But I think we're going to publish the first issue April 1st, and we're still reading through submissions, and we've gotten so many great submissions. We're at a point where we're having to make some very tough decisions. But after that first issue is published, I still don't want to tell people to read the last issue to see what we like. I still want people just to send us what they want us to read. I think going forward, think about what the word feral means, right? Wild, untamed, not domesticated, right? I want people to say, wow, I wonder what they're going to publish in feral this time. It to become predictable, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Well, that's a great mission statement. I think people bringing you their raw talent, but also from a place where that individual craft has been honed. I think, as you were saying earlier, no matter what style or arena it's coming from, just that whatever it is, it's unique and it's you and it's personal and it's coming from the heart or the guts or the soul or all three at once, however it may go. So that's that's wonderful that y'all have launched that. And where can people go to find out more about it and get those submission guidelines?
Oh gosh, now you're going to ask me to tell you the. Hold on.
Google Animal Heart Press. Feral.
Google Feral Journal, or follow me on Facebook or Twitter. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter page for Feral. It's one of those where, it's one of those long, here it is, feraljournal.wordpress.com. That's where people can go. And submissions close March 15th. So if you want to send us something. And we're also, besides poetry, we're also taking art, like visual art. So that can be photography, drawings, paintings. We haven't gotten as many art submissions, so if anybody out there wants to, we'd love to see those.
Awesome. So about a week left that people can check that out and get their submissions in for the first issue, and looking forward to seeing what y'all have put together. It's going to be an exciting debut. And here at the end of the first hour, I want to turn the floor over to you for a little while, Beth, and let you read some of your poems from the new book, if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'll read the first poem in the book, because, again, going back to your introduction of this episode, and by the way, I feel so honored that I'm episode 100. That's awesome that you have done 100 episodes of this show, by the way. That's so great.
It's wonderful to have you on, and I want to reiterate a thank you to everyone who's participated in any way or supported the show in any way. It's been a wild ride so far. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm going to read the first poem of the book, which I think kind of aligns nicely with your introduction to this episode, with sort of the chaos in the world. And I wrote this in 2018 after the solar eclipse. In St. Louis, and actually a little south of St. Louis, was that's was the center of it, like right around the St. Louis area, was like the best spot to be in for all the people who wanted to see the eclipse. And so people traveled to St. Louis for that reason. And the day after the eclipse, I had to get on a plane for work and fly to Chicago. And I go to the airport, and I'm surrounded by like all these tourists who had been there for the eclipse, and they have like T-shirts and they're running around. And then this kind of interesting thing happened. I saw this two women walk off a plane. I'll just say that. And then it was very interesting. Anyway, this is called Looking Away at Lambert Airport. Female twins, black-haired, arm in arm, blind newborn werewolves, identically addicted to meth, disembark the plane in St. Louis, walk into our square of terminal, so craven in eye and mouth that we collectively believe that when the moon blocked our planet's star for 160 seconds, fur began to sprout between their talons, behind their knees, spreading like poisonous mushrooms, only to recede when cicadas stopped singing, when sparrows fell from trees like petrified bones. More arachnid than mammal, they twist their cracked lips into utterings that only the other twin can decipher, and then only with the aid of potions brewed from fresh anteater blood. Unmoved by visible magic, we return one by one to our screens, like sedated vultures waiting for someone to die in front of us. Bubonic plague, rabies, salmonella, something riddled with bullets and primary colors that we can photograph and share with our high school classmates whose skin we haven't in years, or our online food addiction support group as we browse through 81 recipes for heavenly hash, while eclipse stragglers with souvenir tattoos and mildly damaged retinas scream obscenities at their precocious children who are using a gift shop magnifying glass to aim the sun's holy rays onto unattended babies to see if they will burst into ash.
Wow, that's a powerful piece. And speaks to the wonders.
I told you it was dark.
Well, I happen to like dark poetry, so you're in the right place. But I think it speaks to the imagination of a poet's mind to see a couple people hop off a plane and turn it into something like that is the height of creative endeavor.
You know what? When they came off the plane, in the poem I have everybody looking at them, but in real life nobody else did. And they were twins, and they really did look like they were some kind of magical beings. And I remember looking around and thinking, has anybody else seen these two? Like, and everybody was staring at their screens.
Right.
As everybody does these days. So.
Yeah. Well, that was a hell of a piece to kick things off.
I'll just set the tone.
Yeah, I'll let you continue on.
All right. So, let's see. What am I going to read? I will read. I'll read a poem. I actually read this poem for JD. And in most of my poems, unless I say otherwise, mostly in a poem where I say you, if I'm addressing a you in the poem, 90% of the time that you is JD, whether the poem is about him or not. I mean, he's literally my muse. But this one is very specifically about him. It's called Moving Day. While you are in Mississippi moving furniture from your childhood home, vacuuming cockroaches that survived in crevices for 50 years, giving away flower pots and cutlery to strangers in the right place at the right time, driving with rum in a plastic cup, your backseat filled with boxes of newspapers articles, unable to decide which words to keep, which to discard. The temperature here drops 20 degrees. 1 year ago today, we rode the train from Chicago to St. Louis, marveled at lush green cornfields, more rainforest than amber waves of grain, drank wine straight from the open bottle because we forgot to pack cups, and did not speak of my daughter's childhood friend, murdered by heroin, found face down 8 hours after the crime. Too much then. And now I wonder if I'm drinking enough. Alone in 6 rooms, day after day, content with background movie noise, my mother's voice calling to see if my cough is dead, the manager of the local drugstore who doesn't know whether to flirt or be concerned that I'm buying vodka on a cool Sunday morning. And 400 miles away, with nothing left to pack, you are in a hotel shower, washing dirt from your pores beneath your fingernails, letting the water flow hotter and hotter to rid your lung of mold, of kudzu tears, of weeping printer's ink.
Wow. I was drinking too much then, and now I wonder if I'm drinking enough. That's great lines there. Another great poem. Sounds like a interesting trip that y'all must have had from St. Louis to Chicago too. There on the train.
Yeah, we travel well together. You know, and it's funny. The other thing I think I said this this book is dark and it's about a lot of tragedy, but Amanda did a review of the book, and she said this book is about journeys, and she is also right. There are airports and cars and trains and lots of journeys in this book. And it's, even though this book got published after my first book, these poems were written before the poems in Morning Walk. It's just, you know, when you're getting something published, sometimes you don't really control the order of when things get published. And so I also feel like these poems were part of the journey to write the poems in Morning Walk. So there's a lot of literal and metaphorical journeys in this book. I will read that one's awfully long. I won't read a long one.
It's fine. Feel free to read whatever you want.
Okay. Well, then I will read this one. One is a literal journey. In 1987, my best friend and I from college got in our car and spent 3 months on the road. We drove. We were living in Virginia, and we drove, to California and back. And I never wrote about it. I never quite knew what to write about it, and then I finally did a couple of years ago. I finally had something to say about it. This is called Road Trip Redux for Mary. In the last 10 days of our 3-month journey, I confess, all I wanted was to get home. No reason, really. What a shame. maybe a sin, that I couldn't enjoy Memphis, that I wanted to skip Graceland, that I fell asleep in a room of blues musicians, that I didn't have it in me to learn another name, to fall in love with another German tourist roaming the campgrounds of Crater Lake in search of American whiskey, that I'd had my fill of cockroaches in Savannah, fleas in High Point, scorpions in Flagstaff, professional fire eaters in Los Gatos, and heroin addicts on Hollywood Boulevard selling outdated maps with stars for every celebrity overdose. That I couldn't stuff my suitcase with another piece of authentic pottery, museum gift shop postcard, or found art made by the woman in Durango who carried recyclable grocery bags in her car to collect fresh roadkill and sell it to girls like us. I couldn't write another journal entry about the old woman in Mobile who offered us tea, Moravian cookies, and a view of her basement parlor. No energy for Tasmanian travelers who kissed us in New Orleans elevators. I could not foresee how we would always regret that we didn't walk through tall grass to touch the half-buried Cadillacs, or go jello wrestling with Bonnie in Amarillo, Texas. Could not hold in my brain another historical fact, the way women's makeup was made from wax, the difference between wrought and cast iron, the multiple theories as to why the inhabitants of Mesa Verde evacuated their cliff dwellings 900 years ago. I'm sorry that I was longing for my bed, would never have guessed that my favorite future memory would be fishing with your grandpa, learning to drive his tractor between the rows of pecan trees, studying the grooves around his eyes, worn deep from 5 decades of tears for his flax-haired daughter. Sorry that I had no voice for witty conversation with second cousins of friends who gave us their only sofa and unlimited space on their crumb-covered floor, and that as I fell asleep, I heard the 23 grandfather clocks set to chime out of sync every 15 minutes, one long strange night in a pig farmer's house, and dreamt for the 87th night in a row the words of your grandmother's farewell note, cautioning us to lock our doors, cover our ankles, look out for hitchhikers, newlyweds, damsels in distress, all serial killers in disguise, who would rape us, murder us, and mutilate our bodies, leaving us unfit for an open casket funeral.
Wow, quite an ending there. An ominous warning.
True story. True story. That's the note her grandmother left.
That must have been an interesting
Her grandmother
experience.
left us a note telling us that we would be raped and mutilated. And I asked my friend Mary, why did she underline mutilate like 3 times? She goes, because then you wouldn't have an open casket funeral, and that would be a scandal.
Add emphasis to mutilate. Well, that must have been exciting to go back and not just that particular moment, but the entire scene that you capture there over those 3 months, going back after what, nearly 30 years, I guess?
30 years.
Diving back into all those memories.
Yeah, it was fun.
Good memory.
It was fun. And when I sent it to my friend Mary, I said, it sounds like in the poem, it sounds like I didn't have fun. And you know I did. I said, I just used that device for the poem because we had, it was a great experience. We've often said when we were young and it had, weren't married, no kids, no responsibilities, as it were. And gas was 85 cents a gallon. So It was
particularly dangerous situation is the book, a book of journeys, as it's been described, and based on those poems that you've just read here in the last few minutes, I can see why. You definitely have a way of describing scenes and tapping into those moments of recollection. Just so vivid and beautifully done, all three of those pieces. And hopefully we'll hear some more from the collection as the night goes on. But I thought here, take a moment and let everyone know that phone lines are open now at 646-668-8757. If anyone would like to call in, talk to Beth, ask some questions, and read a few poems of your own if you'd like. And I think we'll go to a short music break here and then come back on the other side, and we'll talk to Beth some more and take some calls.
I found a key to my heart when everyone's heart is so calm. You found the lock to my dorm and opened the door to my trust fund. My mystery. Paint, sing a lie, seeing the colors, but you
right, welcome back to Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio, celebrating episode number 100 here tonight, and happy to have Beth Gordon along as a guest. We've been talking about her book, Particularly Dangerous Situation, which you can pick up copies of now, and hearing some of her wonderful poems. So welcome back to the show, Beth, and we're going to open up the phone lines at 646-668-8757 if anyone would like to call in and read a few poems of their own. And on the line here first, great friend of mine, great friend of the show, Mr. Heath Brocker. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Hi, Heath.
Hi, Beth. I really wanted to talk to you because just two quick things, really. Three. First of all, your poems are fucking brilliant.
Thank you.
Into the Void magazine, we read blind, and you hold the record for being published in there. You've been published in there more than anyone, and
oh wow! I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to get published in there. And last issue, you almost made it into the last issue too. I was down to the last 30, and
oh my gosh!
I one at a time. I normally do a mass reject of 200, 300 ones, but when I get that, it's oh my God, she almost made it again. But I have to turn out a ton of really great stuff.
Well, you're always so sweet. The last couple of rejections you sent me, you've been so nice about it, and I think how I feel about that, Heath, because I read for a couple of journals, and I don't take it personally. When my poems get rejected, I know that you get a lot of great submissions, and I'm always so happy to be, because Into the Void, you all put out such a beautiful, beautiful journal, and it's just always such a privilege to be in it. And so, hope to be in it again sometime in the future.
Yeah, I have no doubt you will. You have the formula. I mean,
it's funny. We were talking about the Portland AWP earlier, and I remember Heath gave me a copy of Into the Void, whatever issue it was on, while we were out there and flying back on the plane. I remember reading one of your poems, Beth.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Well, thank you.
Another funny story is when I first started typing up my 20 years worth of my life's work, when I was, this is back in 2014, but what I'm talking about happened in probably 2015. I came across Gone Lawn. And I was this close to submitting to it. This is back when I used to get out submissions a lot. And
back in the good old days.
What's that?
Back in the good old days.
Yeah, back up in the good old days when I had that time and stuff. I don't have that. I'm at the tail end of it's over now. I'm still reading. We get slammed. But I have an idea. I have some ideas to make some more time for myself. I'm gonna try to implement those. But also, what I wanted to say to Beth was what you said about death and how you kind of keep it close to you, and that's so true. You can learn a lot from it. You can learn how to cook better, and not, it's there, and it's not even there in a negative way, really.
Right.
Talking about using
Did you say that you almost Did you say you almost submitted to Gone Lawn?
Yeah, I almost did back in like 2015.
Yeah. Well, if you ever start submitting again, submit there, because Gone Lawn is, and we haven't really talked about that tonight, but Gone Lawn is I'm the poetry reader, and I started doing that with Owen a couple of years ago. He had published a couple of my poems and then just put out a call for somebody to kind of co-edit with him, and I had never done that before, and he was so patient and just a great teacher in that process of editing a journal. But mostly we publish, fiction. We do poetry as well, but just prose poetry, and we like things that are a little bit odd. That's the best way I can put it. So,
okay. And that's good for me. But this Feral Journal, I don't get submissions out anymore, like real submissions. I can do the quick run, copy and paste on a certain. I won't name the journals or magazine online places, but I can do that run, quick copy and paste one and get out, back to work, and excuse me. I have a draft for the new journal Feral, and it's that I'm in the process of putting together. And
awesome.
Hearing you read tonight, I might change that up a little bit.
All right. Well, submit it to us. We're open till the 15th for submission, so we'd love to read it.
Yeah. And no personal treatment because you think because I accept you. So that's it'll be on the cover letter.
That's Heath's disclaimer to everyone. He's got to get it out there. No preferential treatment. But you want to talk a little bit also about the new Concrete Mist Press anthology that just launched, a week ago?
Not even
writers in that.
It says February 20. Oh, I'm looking at proof, but it says February 29th. But Amazon kept giving me stuff about. They kept sending me the same email. I kept asking a question. What is it? They said in the email, we can't put this up for sale because our readers might find it hard, difficult to understand. And as far as what I put for the author, and so I went back and I originally had it as best contemporary post, and I thought that's maybe what they didn't like. then I got him on the phone, and I found out you can't use the word contemporary in the Lost of the Quest. So the guy said, yeah, so I'll bet take it out for you. And then it ends up being published as contemporary writers.
Yeah, I think when you get into working through Amazon Kindle sometimes, those automatic bots flag things for who knows what in the world reason, and you got to go jump through all these hoops to try and accommodate them, and you're lucky you got to even speak with a human being to get it dealt with, so that's glad that it went through and that you were able to get it out. You got an amazing list of writers, that anthology. So
people were bugging me, not bugging me, but just every day, someone was like, is that coming out? I'm this close, I'm this close.
Oh yeah, man, you pulled through, and it's out in the world now. It's a hell of an anthology. It's got a great cover too, and
yeah, that's a great artist in New York that Natalie Bowling drew, and then she also did the smaller artwork on the back. And even as a poem, and it's a first help, because I tried to get as many people from New York into this as possible, and only 5 of them said yes. Do you want to be published with the greatest writers in the world? And they said that.
Well, that's pretty good. You got 5 there from the local spot. It's not too bad, really, to combine them with all those other records. You have.
I don't understand the New York Post. All I try to do is help them, and they seem to just dislike them. But it came out, and the next morning, it came out at 6 in the morning, and then 3 hours later, it was at 73. Then I checked it in anthologies, and an hour or so later, it was at 41, and then an hour or so later, it was at number 1 in sales and anthologies. And it stayed there for
congratulations.
Thank you. If I knew, if I wouldn't have had to have gone back and done all kinds of edits, I would have probably asked you to submit. There's so many people, great posts I know that I feel bad that are like, shit, I didn't ask them.
Next time.
Well, congratulations on new anthology. People should go to Amazon and check out Concrete Mist Press Anthology. Pick up a copy there. Help Heath out. I know how much effort he put into getting this thing out into the world, so I'm glad to see that it's made it out into the waves now. And
there's 2 of Scott's poems that are really, really, really good poems, unique kind of poems.
Appreciate that, friend.
Extra unique.
Well, speaking of poems, do you have something on hand that you'd like to read tonight?
Oh crap! I thought I did. I have the wrong poem. Hold on. Since I haven't gotten much sleep since the reading period started last month.
Last month.
So, And also, I've never gone this far, without making the decisions. But I was just going to read a short one from my first book. The poem was titled "Not Breastfed." No, that's not what I was going to read. I wanted to read I'm sorry. See?
It's all right, man. You can read whatever you want.
I was in fumble mode. I lost my keys. I'm stuck in my apartment. I lost my keys.
You've locked yourself into your apartment with your keys locked. You're writing a poem on air right now.
I'll read I got it for you here. It's here. So sorry about this guy. See, I told you.
That's all good. And while you're looking for that poem, I did want to mention that I've got some clips from Don Biaquez, who also has poems in that Concrete Mist anthology that he was kind enough to record. So we'll listen to those later in the show from that anthology. But right now we'll turn it over to you, Heath.
Okay, well, I can't find that one, so we'll just read Not Breastfed. Okay. The end. No, I'm just kidding. Not breastfed. There were 3 statues there. One for nervousness, one for rape, and one for wisdom. The one for wisdom had its head cut off.
Always dig that last line. Nice piece. That was from your debut book, Curmudgeon.
Yeah, Curmudgeon was born.
Nice.
Right on. Well, thanks so much, my friend, for calling in tonight. Thank you for being a guest so much time here during the first 100 episodes of the show. And congratulations.
Thanks, Keith. It's great to talk to you and hear your voice. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're hearing a very crappy version of it now, but thank you for making Into the Void magazine what it is, award-winning, and you played a big role in that, being in it more than anyone else.
Well, I feel honored. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heath, for calling in tonight, friend, and we'll talk to you again.
Peace.
Another show, my friend.
Okay, it was good talking to both of you. I'll be in touch in the pixelated world.
All right, brother. Have a good night. So that's Heath Baracker calling in, and once again, go pick up that Concrete Mist press anthology. It's a hell of a collection. And check out Into the Void magazine, where he's the poetry editor as well. And we're going to go to the next caller here on the line, someone on Skype. I'm guessing this is Amanda.
Hi.
Hello, Amanda.
Hi.
Grandma Beth.
Hi,
How are you?
Amanda. I'm good. I just saw your note. I'm sorry I didn't read it. Amanda,
yeah, that's my request.
She sent me a request. So, how are you, dear? You had a nice little getaway last week?
I did. I went away for 2 nights by myself and stayed in a little converted chapel up in the mountains and worked on editing my novel ahead of a big pitch session next month.
Wow. Sounds like another journey as the theme of the
just heavenly.
What's the theme of your novel that you're working on?
It is actually kind of a literary mystery, but it's not a whodunit. It's a how did they do it and who's next.
Ooh.
Down
you
to
say
the
that with like the sweetest voice, right?
Aww. It's funny
gosh.
because it's not the kind of thing I would normally write at all, but the idea came to me, and I have this ensemble cast just walked into my head ready to go, and I sat down and I wrote the whole thing in the space of about 6 weeks. And then, of course, as you do when you're writing things like that, put it away for a very long time before I came back to it. And now I'm just putting some finishing touches on it before I start pitching it.
Congratulations on the progress going on there, and
thank you.
And on the recent trip, sounds like a nice getaway.
It was just beautiful. I went up to, I think we were talking last week about a lot of where I live has been damaged severely by fires. And
right.
Where I went was quite close to some of those areas, but we've had a lot of rain and there's a lot of renewal happening already in the land itself. But, of course, the communities still need a lot of support.
Absolutely, dealing with that unfortunate natural tragedy, as I alluded to, I guess, earlier in the show, all these chaotic
that's the
circumstances
theme
that
of
we're
the
dealing
night.
with. Yeah, the theme of the night, exactly. 2020, the world of chaos. Welcome.
By just lurching from one disaster to the next.
Well,
you just had a couple poems that came out, Amanda, I saw that were published.
In Santarel's notebook?
Yeah. Did that show up on Twitter in the last couple of days?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, those are what I'm thinking. Yeah, those were beautiful.
No, thank you.
And all the work that you read last week when you and Ellie were on here with those collaborative poems, recommend anyone listening to go back and listen to last week's show as well, because those were some great pieces that you churned out together.
Plenty more where that came from. We actually did a little more writing together during the week.
Oh, fantastic. Anything to share tonight?
I won't share yet with those ones because Ellie's not here, and of course they're a collaborative effort, and she's unfortunately unavailable tonight. But I can read for you something from a project I've been working on, which is a poetic response to the life and work of Claude Monet.
Okay, yeah, wonderful.
And I've been chipping away at that one for quite a while. This is called The Rippling Current of Self-Expression. Ocean waves rise and fall like the ribs of a lover, even, rhythmic. Swallowed words held back by my reluctant tongue, choked down, stifled by fear. A splash against the sky, droplets displaced by a leap of faith, soft and clean, invade my mouth, fresh and damp like summer mornings. I let the syllables tumble out.
Very nice.
Wow. I love the rippling, like the ribs of my lover. Wow. That's a great image.
Thank you. It's I've been working on that collection for quite a while now, and I have this amazing, I think I sent you a photo of it the other day, Beth, this amazing A3 notebook, scrapbook kind of thing with excerpts from Monet's letters and pictures of his paintings and notes in my responses to his paintings and some little academic excerpts from an exhibition I went to, and it's all just coming together, and I'm handwriting the poems through that collection of research and then gradually transcribing them into a document. But it's been a really amazing experience. I've always loved art, and I love being outside and trees and water and nature, and it just seemed like a perfect fit for me to explore that through Monet's eyes, because he has such a passion for nature in all its forms.
Yeah, you did send me a photograph of that. It looks really cool.
It's a brick. It weighs a ton.
Well, and what you were asking me about today, like the poem you just read, I think that would be a perfect one for that.
Oh, excellent. Thank
that
you.
application you're doing. Yeah, I think that's beautiful what you just read. Hey, while you're on the line, I was thinking I would read the one from my new collection that you said you couldn't get that line out of your head.
Please, that was that last line that just stuck with me.
So I've written this funny little collection. It's about 20 poems. And speaking of travel, I'm on planes fairly frequently, and I just started paying attention to the things that flight attendants and TSA say to you. Like some of the things, if you just sit and listen to the words they're saying, they're kind of bizarre. Things like the nearest exit may be behind you. Like, take that out of the context of an airport, and that's an odd thing to say, right? So I wrote these little poems. They're these little square poems, and they all have the titles of all the poems are things that you hear in an airport or an airplane, even though the poems themselves aren't about airplanes or airports. Those are the titles. I wrote 20 of them, and Amanda had mentioned how much she liked the last line of this one. It's very short. This one's called "The Plastic Bag Will Not Fully Inflate." It's true we are counting days, breathing minutes. I'm 2/3 finished with my lavender latte, and the heart is still floating, ghost-like, on the surface, while you tell me you are on a liquid diet and vodka doesn't count. Old pen pals haunt your inbox. Angelica in Germany is cleaning house and declares she's too old for this shit. She says, John, remember that summer? The sunlight was a song on our tongues, and we were not sober for 6 honeyed weeks. When are you coming back, my friend? Hurry. We are all dropping like flies.
Wow, nice piece, Beth.
What I love about this poetry is her language. She weaves these beautiful, intense word pictures, and everything is obviously so considered. There's a lot of thought and careful assembly behind her writing, and I think that really shows in how well everything flows and how sometimes you would never think to put those words together, but when they are, they just feel like a natural fit.
Excellently said.
Thank you.
I'm still just caught up on the idea of the nearest exit might be behind you in this ominous warning. The only way to get out is
and one of
no
my
longer
poems
here.
is titled "The Nearest Exit." Yeah.
You better dive into whatever's coming because there's no way out.
Right.
Or is
Yeah,
it
they
that the
say
only
weird
way out is to
things.
go back?
Yeah.
Right.
Circle around.
Right.
Return on the next cycle. Yeah. Well, we've got about 20 minutes left in the show. We've got Beth Gordon and Amanda McLeod on the line right now. And I want to bring in another caller from area code 662, if you're there, from 662.
How about level? So it don't just run out of your phone. There you go.
Is that
Hello, is there someone
JD?
there?
Imagine that. Wow.
All right, we'll go back to them in just a minute. Do you think that's JD there on the line?
I think that's JD. Yeah.
All right, we'll check back in. Might have slipped away from the phone there.
Do it. What are you doing?
JD? JD?
John, are you there? 662.
John? JD?
Yes.
All
Hey,
right.
hi.
Hi, JD.
Hi.
You're on the line. You got me and Amanda and Scott.
Yeah, I've been listening.
It's nice to meet you, finally.
Yeah, you too. I was so glad you have some rain in Australia.
Yes, it's been a long time coming, and it's not enough, but it's put all the fires out, and we've finally got some green back.
Good, good. Okay.
Well, how are things going with you, John?
Scott, is this Scott?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was having some essential oils rubbed into my skin, and it was feeling really good.
That's a hell of a way to listen to this show. I'm going to take up that practice from now on.
Yeah. I mean, it can't hurt, can it?
No. That's a good idea.
Well, JD was
That's
listening
hilarious.
in San Antonio.
Yes.
Oh, at the AWP?
Yeah.
How'd you enjoy the experience?
It was great. You know, it was really bad that about 1/3 of the attendees didn't show up because of coronavirus. But on the flip side, it made things more manageable. And we learned a lot. I did. And picked up a lot of books. I think Beth has blistered hands from carrying all the bags full of books to her on the plane. I only collected, I counted, I have 31 new poetry books. And she probably has.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Not to interrupt you,
So-
John, but I don't know if someone on the line maybe is on speakerphone or has their computer on in the background. We're getting a little bit of feedback.
Okay.
It might be, I'll just shut this door. It might be me. I'm not actually at home at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Let me check to see if I am on speaker.
No, I don't think you. That did it. I think Amanda closing the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that helped a lot. Thanks, Amanda. So, yeah, you got quite a haul there at AWP. It's always nice to come back with swag.
You bet. We wrote some. I think I wrote more poems in the airport than I did at the conference, because we had some lengthy layovers. And, when the mood strikes you, you write. So, yeah.
And I think airports are a really interesting place to write too, because there's, you see people out of their everyday environments, and for some people that is their everyday environment. There's a lot of coming and going and unusual moments.
Oh, yeah.
People watching at the airport is one of the all-time great activities.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, my gosh. Well, not to make light of the coronavirus, but
correct.
While we were in the airport, we were counting dogs, because dogs in airports is a phenomenon that's really like grown the last couple of years. You see more and more people with their dogs in the airport. And so we were counting in every airport we were in, we were counting dogs, and we were counting people wearing masks, and we had our eyes open trying to spot a dog in a mask, although we never did.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
I've seen that. I have seen that.
Oh,
you saw a dog in a mask?
I've seen a dog in a mask.
Oh, I'm so jealous, Amanda.
Don't be jealous. We also can't buy tissues or toilet paper here at the moment.
Oh, my gosh. Well, JD, you should read a poem.
Oh, funny you should ask. I have one pulled up, and it's
all right.
the last one I wrote when we were in Dallas, and you were headed down toward, I don't know. I said go do your thing, and when you came back, I had this poem written, and it's still sort of rough, but it's called "Fast Fish Eat Quickly," or "How to Learn Spanish Like a Native." I am learning Spanish like a piranha with orange lips, turning the water pink with diluted blood. These texts are too heavy to carry into still water. I need current and currency, words swapping places like an illusionist secret ammunition. First the colored scarf she waves in my face, a signal, a cue for transition. A magic wand won't do, nor will sweet tricks in a poolside cabana. It is serious work, swimming with the big fish, clogging gills, filling up my mouth with cement. Toro for bull, cerveza for beer, these are the easy ones. Immersion cools the hot skin like liquid wax in ice water. Look, my lips are blue. The piranha are chihuahua with razor-sharp teeth.
Wow.
Say it like this. Say it like this, he demands. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Hold your lips just right. Make the words spring from your lips out into the daylight. Make them click like a fast train to Mexico City, to Puerto Vallarta, to San Antonio. I am learning quickly like agua spilling from a public drinking fountain, where fish gather to tell their stories, where children smile as I formulate sentences that even they can understand.
Nice.
That's it.
Oh my gosh, I can so hear you and Beth, your influences on each other. Your voices click together.
Yeah. Yeah, we have noticed that too, and it's 6 years of collegiality and face-to-face writing every Friday night for 6 years. So
I want to come to the Magic Kitchen table.
Everybody wants to come to the Magic. We should sell tickets.
Tickets. Yeah, all you have to do is bring a bottle of wine or two. So.
Can do.
Yeah.
If I'm ever over there, I am coming to the Magic Kitchen table.
Well,
all right, it's a deal.
Both of you have an open invitation.
Yay!
Magic Kitchen Table sounds like a title for a poem or a chapbook or a podcast or something. It's got a.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Ooh, I've been thinking about a podcast.
Magic Kitchen Table.
Because you don't have enough to do already.
Right. Because we're not busy enough. Hey, Beth, you want to run a journal with us? Let's make a podcast. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I want to thank everyone
for letting me do.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a pleasure to talk with you again, John. I want to thank everyone for calling in tonight. Beth, catching up with you and hearing about your new book, Particularly Dangerous Situation. Some wonderful poems from it. Amanda, always a pleasure to talk with you. And
Thank
great
you,
work.
Scott.
Great work you're doing at Animal Heart Press. And John, I'm glad that had an opportunity to attend the AWP down there and do some people watching. Great poem that you shared with. I want to thank my buddy Heath Brocker for calling in earlier. Check out his new anthology from Concrete Mist Press. And I have a couple of clips from another friend of the show, Don Biaquez, that I want to share to close things out. But, Beth, I thought maybe if you'd like to read one more poem from your book here at the end, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. I'll read the last poem in the book. This is what I was saying about that I hope the book ends on a hopeful note. This is a poem I wrote after I watched a movie called Arrival, which is this science fiction movie. All I will say about it is if you don't think you like science fiction, you should watch it because it's kind of about aliens coming to Earth, but it's not really about that at all. And there was a theme in the movie of the idea of if you've already experienced intense tragedy, loss, then you have nothing to fear when the aliens arrive was what I took away from it. So anyway, the poem is called Alpha or Omega. When it arrives in silent pods, groaning starships, indecipherable syllables, we, the grief-stricken, silent-tongued, unloosened from rock and displaced, will become chosen time travelers, ambassadors of all things Homo sapiens. While the once blessed throw themselves off skyscrapers in front of wayward trains, supplicate before disgraced priests, retreat to rat-ridden cellars, we will speak in tongues, in dead languages, in Gregorian chants, in Morse code, dash, dot, dot, dash, dash, dot. The griefless will ignite in mass self-immolations, feed their children manufactured poison, expand their arsenals. But we have no fear, no need of inorganic protective clothing, World War I era gas masks, no voodoo-induced comas. We will not raid the graveyards. Our souls are finely tuned to the slightest change in gravity, the leaving of each unspoken life. We are the keepers of emergency room stories. We welcome with heart-crushed peace.
Fantastic piece, and love the theme of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And promote, as you said. So, once again, Beth, thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk with you again.
Thank you, Scott. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And Amanda and John, thank you as well. All three of you.
Thank
you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Always welcome back on the show, any three of you. And thank you to everyone for listening here tonight. It's been great celebrating the 100th episode. And I want to close things out with another friend of the show, been a regular guest through these past year and a half, reading some poems from the Concrete Mist anthology that Heath Brocker spoke about earlier. This is Don Biaquez.
Hey Scott, just a huge shout out to your centenary episode on Block Talk Radio, and here's to 500 more. I'm sure it'll be a blast in the next few months and years to come. I'm going to read from The Taste of Dust, which is one of the two poems in the new Concrete Mist debut anthology by Heath Brocker. And The Taste of Dust. Toxic whispers. dagger smiles hiding snide, bitter, twisted, jealous, secret remarks whispered in secret corners behind cement doors, on infected floors, hiding the stench of rotten, fermenting souls, not meant to roam this earth with those who have the capacity to care, support, uplift, and inspire the forgotten, the dismissed, the trodden, the rejects, the shadow walkers, hiding from mean, sickening soul-eaters whose intent is to destroy, maim, and cripple in an ever-spiraling, chaotic world, bowing down to their elected, piercing, destructive, defective swords, shooting repetitive salvos of toxic whispers, hoping to disintegrate, even annihilate, until you involuntarily choke on the taste of dust. Stinging echoes. Just as you thought your formative brittle years of discovery and exploration of the meaning of life itself was coming to fruition, the next stages of your existence saw the introduction of new burning voices, seeking out sincere, genuine hearts to torment, target, and terrorize, until their burning tears submitted to searing, stinging echoes of hidden vulnerabilities, yearning to exist amongst the living, to be accepted for their peculiar hidden weirdness, masked wickedness, to compensate for their obvious selected non-existence, as they yearn for you to share the taste of dust. Piercing embers, your protective, emotive, necessary shield, cocooning you from continuing piercing embers, from lost earthly demons, can only last for so long before disintegrating into a porous, penetrative, welcome, depleted membrane to allow lava-burning, mocking, verbal fallout to enter your very being freely, with all barriers down, letting in unwelcome entities poking through your disintegrating core as it delivers piercing embers, leaving only the taste of burning dust as you frantically seek an escape from this lingering, spiraling nightmare, falling into the dark cavity of nowhere. Demon Alley. Nightly dream sequences catapult you into an unfamiliar demon alley, chaotic madness, recognizing your daily tormentors, revealing their true identities, poking you incessantly as you drag yourself along their chosen playground in the darkest corners of Demon Avenue, where they snigger and sneer to penetrate your vanishing veneer, whilst licking off dust from rotten moss, earth crawl, clawing your way through sour earth just in a last attempt to escape sure annihilation from hellish domination, leaves a welcome taste of dust, ensuring at last an existential emergence. Richard I, an ode to a bully. At the dawn of my primary education, you were the first aggressor rumored about. New classmates whispered about your plots and merciless tyranny on unexpected new arrivals. I tried to dismiss your legendary fist, fearing to resist your toxic influence, but then you failed a year, and I found myself too near to your dagger smile veneer, slowly tasting my creeping, dreaded fear. You smiled at me once, but I was not going to take any chance in order to avoid reactory revenge. It started unexpectedly, you sitting behind me, slapping my head repeatedly with your disciple Jonathan, cruelly giggling like a drunk, brainwashed gargoyle beside you, me, inwardly screaming for rescue from my ignorant teacher, whilst shaking from a hopeless emotional seizure. Do you realize how you humiliated me, disrespected me, mocked me, dehumanized me, belittled me, bullied me? You carried on until I rebelled unexpectedly, after a long while, hiding my lonely shame and humiliation game from family and friends, your daily morning taunting, flicking my ear from behind, bashing your fist on the back of my head, resulting in my sudden existential revolt, my desperate resolve as I punched you unexpectedly, filled with white, blind, hot rage to defend myself, to finally stand up for myself, to save myself. I knew instantly that I have sealed my fate, as you hissed your spitting, shameful hate for my daring rebellion, my inevitable demise to be realized during first break, your last vengeful act. Only I could hear your warning whisper, your tongue breathing fire into my soul. You waited until everyone ran down the stairs, your salivating gargoyle blocking curious stares. As you kicked me in my eyes, I silently cried tears of blood, nowhere to hide, as I sat there swimming in despair. Mark found me, consoled me, calmed me. He understood my shame, my hidden familiar pain. I heard decades later of your death, your reputation fried, as I removed you from my memory and bound by my fate to forgive you, even though you were so cruel, you made my school days hell, that I survived no more your bullying victim, as I have found peace in my inner sanctum.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Heath. Thank you, John. Thank you, Amanda. And thank you to Beth Gordon. Go pick up her book, Particularly Dangerous Situation. And here's to the next 100, everyone. Selah.